This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Today is just a quick video. I want to revisit this announcement that came out last week about Washington, D.C. being shortlisted for hosting the 2027 Invictus Games. Is it just me, or did this announcement come out of the blue? I mean, we all knew about Birmingham, UK, but who knew about Washington, D.C.? As always with Meghan and Harry, nothing is ever straightforward with these two because everything these two get involved with is so dodgy. So, looking at this press release that Invictus Games released last week, I find something very peculiar in the wording. Let me show you what I'm thinking. So if we go to the middle of this press release where it starts with Helen Helliwell, CEO Invictus Games 2027 UK bid, said, "We were privileged to make initial presentations to the Invictus Games Foundation Board earlier this month and are thrilled to move forward to the shortlist. We have a truly compelling bid to bring the Games back to the UK, showcasing the best of our armed forces communities and delivering on our pledge to make this the best country in the world to be a veteran, as well as delivering an amazing week of games festival at the NEC Birmingham, a Commonwealth Games venue in 2022. We want to use the platform of the games to improve opportunities for adaptive sport, arts, and employment, enabling communities to thrive both in the run up to the games and as a legacy from them across the UK and beyond." Now, from this statement, you actually get the feeling that they went through the proper process in order to qualify to be shortlisted. Now, listen to the statement that was given for Washington, D.C. It says Angie M. Gates, Events DC president and CEO, said, "It's an incredible honor for Washington, D.C. to be selected as a finalist for the 2027 Invictus Games. As the culture capital, Washington, D.C. is a diverse and vibrant community that welcomes meaningful competitive sports that honor our veterans. We are a world class city united by sports and a top tier destination, which makes us the ideal host for the Invictus Games 2027. I don't know about you, but after reading this, I don't get the warm and fuzzy that Events DC does not appear to have gone through the same qualification process that Birmingham, UK went through. And the reason why I say that is one, the statement is very generic. It doesn't seem or appear that they had been working together for very long. It just says, "Oh, we're delighted that we've been shortlisted. Did you throw your name in a hat?" You have to think about when they've picked host cities before, they had proper funding and support from various governmental organizations. Like Dusseldorf had backing from the military, we had Australia, and I think the Veterans Office. This is a for profit company. And there's no indication as to where the money is going to come from to put on this shebang. In addition, I do feel that the Invictus Games Foundation is being shady here by not being transparent and disclosing the other countries that submitted bids that they were looking at in order to get to the short list. You do realize that each country that submits a bid, they have to submit also a submission fee of $10,000 for administrative costs. You would think at least give the courtesy of naming who submitted bids to promote them. In any case, I feel like all of this was just for the optics. I do believe that they've made their mind up and their choice is going to be Washington, D.C., but this is based off of what I've been observing. I do have a theory on what I think might be going on, and I don't think that Harry's going to be going anywhere. And those rumors about Mike Tyndall taking over as patron, I don't think they have any weight to it, and this is why. So, a couple of days ago, Feisty Energy 107 posted this tea about the Warrior Games. Now, I must preface, please take this with a grain of salt. I don't have any evidence that this is indeed factual. This is just gossip that has been floating around. But it says, "My daughter works for a big veterans group that participates in the Wounded Warriors. She has said that Harry is trying to get a position with them and is constantly badgering the DoD, Department of Defense. The games are in June in Florida. Harry wants a big role. So far, she has heard that most are avoiding him. Invictus is a mess, and as usual, Harry wants to leave it behind and walk into a bigger position. She is hoping that he is denied everything, but who knows? And then there's a little blurb here that says if Harry is cozying up to the U.S. Department of Defense, maybe he wants the U.S. military and Warrior Games to bail Invictus out or have a place to land if he moves on from the Invictus Games. The Warrior Games must have huge coffers compared to Invictus Games, and it is likely H&M want in on that. After reading this, I have to agree that if there is opportunity that's better for Meghan and Harry with Warrior Games, you can bet that they will latch themselves onto it because they are these greedy little globalist parasites. We do know that the money that funds the Warrior Games comes from the Department of Defense, which perhaps maybe it is bigger than what the rest of these games are giving out. And I could see Harry and Meghan trying to latch onto that. The other thing that dawned on me is that could it be the Warrior Games and Invictus Games may merge together? And the reason why I say that is just remembering all the little things that Harry has done with Warrior Games, such as a year ago, he pops up in San Diego for the games and then ends up giving the closing speech. Like, why? I mean, who could forget Harry and Meghan cozying up with NATO at the last Invictus Games in Dusseldorf, as well as Harry promoting Ukraine war on his Netflix Bard of Invictus? Wouldn't it make sense to bring Warrior Games and Invictus Games, since Invictus is actually the international piece, to then combine the two because we are now moving towards this one world government and they are all champions for war? I mean, what a great way to continue to keep exploiting these veterans and lining their own pockets. Don't you find it's kind of wild that, like, Lockheed Martin and Boeing, the ones who are supplying this military equipment, is supporting and sponsoring, actually being premier sponsors for these injured veterans? Don't you see the irony here? I find these people so gross. You have these sponsors who are the ones that are pushing for this war because at the end of the day, this means money. You have these veterans who have gone in, sacrificed their lives, come out completely scarred in so many ways from the experience, only to come out to be further exploited by people who were the reason why they had to go to war in the first place. And then on top of it, all these companies that pretend to care, but really they're there for the tax write off. It's all so incredibly gross. But the reason why I think that Warrior Games and Invictus Games might be merging in the future, not just because of Harry's participation and alignment with all these people. It's because in the Department of Defense's marketing promo slick for sponsorship opportunities, they're very clear in their vision for the future. Right off the bat, it smacks you in the face of their vision. It says the Warrior Games serve as a celebration of achievement, inclusion, recovery, and respect for our wounded warriors, their families, and their caregivers. An enduring structure and standards are established for the United States Army to support the Department of Defense, Warrior Games, and Invictus Games. There it is. This document has come from the Department of Defense, and when they write vision, to me, I interpret that as the future. And it does look like the future is going to include this Invictus Games, which I find disgusting. And the reason why I say that is because our tax dollars are going towards lining the pockets of these assholes. Meanwhile, we have so many veterans here in this country who are not getting any kind of support or financial help and are living on the street while we throw away money not only to these globalists, but also giving it to these illegal migrants that are coming in and destroying the country that these veterans work so hard to protect. The thing that's frustrating about all of this is veterans can scream all day long about getting Harry removed, but guess what? He's not going to go anywhere, especially with this operation going on. Now, I reiterate, this is all speculation based off of what I'm observing and drawing my own conclusion. Now, if the games are awarded to Washington, D.C. for 2027, then I think it'd be safe to say that there is some type of synergy, merger, partnership, whatever, that will end up getting American taxpayer dollars that will ultimately find its way to Meghan and Harry's pockets. This is something that I am not going to be pleased about if that indeed is what is going on. The veterans are going to have to decide, and I don't know what the sentiment is of the military here in the US and how they feel about Harry, but I'm hoping that they see the disrespect that he has shown our country, especially with what he's doing with this censorship industrial complex. He should be kicked out immediately, but that's just my opinion. The last thing I want to show you is something I found online concerning the Vancouver 2025 games and the quantity of supporting staff and volunteers that are going to be benefiting from all this government money as well as I want to say sponsorship. So as you can see here, there's 9-member senior executives supported by 28 mid-managers that they're hiring between 12 and 24 months, and then an additional 140 staff to be hired 3 to 6 months out, so contracted for the 140. But then after that, there will be 300 leadership volunteers and 1,000 additional volunteers to run the games. So 1,300 people who are not going to get paid anything. So then you have 37 people who are actually going to be full-time employees with benefits. What I found online was the release form for the volunteers, and check this out. Now, I understand that with as many volunteers as they're looking to have, you need to have some type of liability. But looking at this document, there's some things that, I think might be a little bit overboard, but perhaps maybe it's something that Megan had forced her way to include. In any case, number one says voluntary participation. It says you acknowledge that you are 18 years of age and have applied to be a volunteer for the Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025, and that you will not be entitled to any compensation or benefits, including but not limited to health and/or disability programs or any other benefits that may be afforded to the employees. For clarity, your services shall be charitable in nature. That's a concept that Meghan and Harry don't seem to understand yet. Now, these are the points that I found a bit over the top. Bullet number 7, security. Given the sensitivity around security requirements, you agree that Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025, in conjunction with local, provincial, national, and international police forces or security agencies, may at any time and from time to time conduct a criminal records search, police history information search, and or other security checks and searches as Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025 may require. By volunteering, you acknowledge the particular importance of searches being conducted prior to or at the commencement of your volunteer experience, and again, prior to any level of accreditation being granted to you for access to Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025. You agree that upon request at any time and from time to time, you will execute a security clearance form and or such other documents or consents as Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025 may require in order to permit Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025 to conduct the searches. You further agree that Invictus Games Vancouver 2025 reserves the right to deny games accreditation to you to terminate your role in the event that it determines in its sole discretion that the outcome of the searches is not satisfactory. But even better, you are responsible for being legally and financially responsible for any of your actions. But on the flip side, Invictus Games doesn't want to be responsible. And they say the assumption of risk in item number 10, you are aware that there may be various risks in participating in volunteer activities and services with the Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025, including but not limited to verbal abuse, harassment of any kind, theft of your personal belongings, physical and or emotional injuries, howsoever arising and or unforeseen catastrophic events. Notwithstanding these risks, you understand that you are participating as a volunteer with the Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025 with the full knowledge of the risks involved and agree to accept any and all risks of injuries, death, or damages. If you have any concerns about agreeing to this assumption of risks, we ask that you please decline from volunteering. So there you have it, folks. You got Megan showing up. She's going to be able to verbally assault any of these volunteers, treat them like garbage, and people can't do anything about it. But on the flip side, if you flip off on Megan and tell her off, she could come after you and sue you. That's not a fair deal here. I mean, look, these people are volunteering and doing them a favor to carry on these games. I mean, I think there needs to be some give and take and some help here in this situation. I don't think this is balanced in my humble opinion. Especially if you're gonna be in the same vicinity of Meghan Markle. That's just not a safe environment in my humble opinion. Now, the next line is so arrogant. Like it says, release in consideration of being permitted to volunteer for the Invictus Games Vancouver Whistler 2025, you hereby forever release VWGC and the Invictus Games Foundation and their directors, officers, employees, and agents from any actions, causes of action, claim, cross claims, and demands that you now have or may hereafter have for any injury, loss, or damage resulting from any act, omission, negligence, gross negligence, and/or intentional conduct howsoever caused by any director, Megan, officer, Harry, employee or agent of the VWGC and the Invictus Games Foundation in the course of your participation in the activities and performance of volunteer services. Like, get the F out of here. Like, who would want to volunteer for these people? Seriously. In any case, you're also waiving any rights to your image, as we've seen with a lot of these release forms, including the one that Megan sent to the Harlem school for those kids to release. F that, man. You see, like these people are just like out for nothing but exploitation, use and abuse and discard. That's really what I see this all about. That I just wanted to show you because I found it interesting. I mean, yeah, it is a legal document, and I know that they have to protect themselves at all costs, but geez, you're a volunteer. You have to recognize that people want to volunteer for you and are going to do it. I would hope people in Canada are quite friendly and nice that they'd be doing it with good intentions, but to show that, like, you would be responsible for any damage or any type of abuse of one of the employees like Megan or whatever the case is, and you can't do nothing about it, and she could sue you. But on the flip side, they could do whatever they want. You could get hurt and they won't help you one bit. Like, I don't know. You would think that they would have like insurance to cover this kind of stuff, but just my thoughts. Thought I'd share. What do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
It was such a fraud.